the hidden psychological pattern that sabotages love. Carl Jung uncovered the most devastating relationship destroyer in human psychology, a hidden mechanism that operates beneath conscious awareness and systematically ruins every attempt at authentic love. He called it Anima projection, and it's the reason why your relationships follow the same predictable pattern of intense attraction, gradual disillusionment, and eventual failure, no matter how perfect the person seemed at the beginning. This isn't about compatibility issues or communication problems. It's about a fundamental psychological error that prevents you from ever truly seeing or loving the actual person in front of you. Instead, you're unconsciously falling in love with your own inner feminine energy, projected onto an external woman, creating relationships built on illusion rather than reality. The shocking truth Jung discovered is that most men go through their entire lives never having a genuine relationship because they're always relating to their own psychological projections rather than to real women. This projection pattern doesn't just ruin romantic relationships, it sabotages friendships with women, professional collaborations, and even relationships with daughters, sisters, and mothers, because it creates a fundamental distortion in how you perceive and interact with feminine energy in all its forms. The Anima projection operates like a psychological virus that infects every interaction you have with women, creating what Jung called compulsive repetition of the same relationship patterns regardless of who you're with or how much you try to change your approach. You meet someone new and feel that instant, electric attraction that seems deeper and more meaningful than mere physical chemistry. You're convinced this person is different, special, your soulmate or perfect match. The intensity of the connection feels spiritual, destined, like you've found the missing piece of your soul. But what you're actually experiencing isn't recognition of the other person. It's your psyche's recognition of its own projected contents reflected back at you. This projection creates relationships that feel magical and intoxicating at the beginning, because you're essentially falling in love with yourself, with your own unconscious feminine energy that you've placed onto another person. The woman becomes a screen for your own anima, carrying qualities, meanings, and significance that come from your internal psychology rather than from her actual personality and character. She seems to embody everything you've been searching for because she's literally carrying your own unconscious contents. Have you ever noticed that your strongest initial attractions to women often faded as you got to know them better, leaving you wondering what happened to that magical connection you felt at the beginning? The first stage of anima projection that Jung identified is what he called idealization and inflation, the period where the woman becomes larger than life, carrying superhuman qualities of beauty, wisdom, understanding, or spiritual significance. During this phase, you see her as extraordinarily special, uniquely gifted, or possessing rare qualities that make her different from other women. You interpret everything she does through the lens of this idealization, finding profound meaning in ordinary gestures and seeing confirmation of her specialness in normal human behaviors. This idealization creates what Jung termed unconscious worship. You begin treating the woman as if she possesses magical powers to complete you, heal your wounds, or provide meaning and purpose to your existence. You look to her for validation, emotional regulation, inspiration, and guidance in ways that no human being can possibly fulfill. The relationship becomes less about mutual partnership and more about your unconscious attempt to connect with your own feminine energy through her. The woman, meanwhile, often enjoys this initial worship and attention, but gradually begins to feel the pressure of carrying projections that don't match her actual personality or capabilities. She realizes that you're not seeing her as she really is, but as some kind of idealized fantasy figure. This creates a terrible bind. If she tries to be herself, she disappoints your projections, but if she tries to live up to the projections, she loses herself in the process. The idealization phase also prevents genuine intimacy because you're not actually getting to know the real person. You're so focused on maintaining the projection that you unconsciously ignore or reinterpret information that contradicts your idealized image. When she shows normal human flaws, emotions, or needs, you either don't see them or you explain them away to preserve the fantasy. Can you remember times when you found yourself making excuses for a woman's behavior or reinterpreting her actions to maintain your positive opinion of her, even when the evidence suggested something different? The second stage Jung identified is disillusionment and deflation, the inevitable collapse that occurs when reality can no longer be ignored and the woman fails to match your projected expectations. This stage often begins gradually, as small disappointments accumulate. She doesn't respond the way you expected. She has opinions or preferences that conflict with your projections, or she fails to provide the emotional fulfillment you unconsciously expected from her. The disillusionment phase is particularly painful because it feels like betrayal, even though the woman hasn't actually done anything wrong. She simply revealed herself to be a real human being, with her own personality, needs, and limitations, rather than the projected fantasy figure you fell in love with. Your disappointment isn't really about her failures. It's about the collapse of your own projections and the loss of connection to your anima energy that she was carrying for you. During this phase, men often experience what Jung called projection reversal. The idealized qualities suddenly become perceived as flaws or deceptions. The woman who seemed spiritually evolved now appears emotionally unstable. The one who seemed uniquely understanding now feels demanding or needy. The mysterious and fascinating woman now seems confusing or irrational. These reversals happen because you're still not seeing the actual person. You're just projecting the opposite qualities onto her. This stage often involves increasing criticism, attempts to change or fix the woman, or emotional withdrawal as you try to force her back into the projection that has collapsed. You might find yourself thinking she's changed, or that she was pretending to be someone else, when in reality she's been consistent. You've just stopped projecting your anima onto her and started seeing her more clearly. The third stage Jung described is blame and repetition, where men typically conclude that the woman was the problem and seek a new partner to carry their projections, rather than recognizing the pattern and addressing the underlying psychological mechanism. This stage involves creating narratives about what went wrong that focus entirely on the woman's flaws, limitations, or deceptions, while remaining unconscious of your own role in creating a relationship based on projection rather than reality. The blame phase serves to protect the ego from recognizing its own psychological immaturity and to preserve the anima projection mechanism for future use. By making the woman responsible for the relationship's failure, you can maintain the belief that the next woman might be different, that you'll eventually find someone who truly matches your projections and can carry your anima successfully. This creates what Jung called the eternal search, an endless cycle of projection, disillusionment, and blame that continues throughout life without ever leading to genuine intimacy or satisfaction. Each new relationship follows the same pattern because the underlying mechanism remains unconscious and unchanged. The specific details vary, but the structure stays identical: idealization, disillusionment, blame, and repetition. Have you found yourself thinking that your ex-partners changed over time, or that they somehow weren't who you thought they were, while your attraction patterns with new women follow surprisingly similar trajectories? The devastating effects of anima projection extend far beyond romantic disappointment into fundamental distortions of masculine psychology and development. When men consistently project their anima onto women, they remain disconnected from their own feminine energy and dependent on external relationships for psychological wholeness. This creates chronic neediness, emotional instability, and an inability to develop the complete range of human psychological capacities. Men trapped in anima projection often struggle with creativity, intuition, emotional intelligence, and spiritual development because they've projected these capacities onto women rather than developing them internally. They look to relationships to provide meaning, inspiration, and emotional regulation that they should be generating from their own integrated personality. This dependency makes them unattractive to healthy women who want partners, not psychological patients seeking external completion. The projection also prevents men from developing genuine empathy and understanding of women because they're always relating to their own projections, rather than to actual feminine consciousness. They never learn to appreciate women's real qualities, struggles, and experiences because they're too busy managing their own projected contents. This creates relationships that feel unsatisfying to women because they never feel truly seen or appreciated for who they actually are. Jung's solution to the anima projection problem involves what he called active imagination and conscious relationship with the anima, learning to relate directly to your own feminine energy rather than projecting it onto external women. This requires recognizing that the magical, mysterious, fascinating qualities you've been seeking in women actually exist within your own psyche and need to be developed through conscious inner work rather than external relationship. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to break the cycle of projection and develop the psychological maturity that creates authentic relationships based on reality rather than fantasy. Like this video if you recognize these patterns in your own dating history and want to understand how to relate to real women instead of your own projections. Share this content with someone who's tired of relationship disappointments and ready to do the inner work that creates genuine intimacy. The first step in Jung's method for overcoming anima projection is projection recognition and withdrawal, learning to identify when you're relating to your own psychological contents rather than to the actual person in front of you. This requires developing what Jung called psychological objectivity, the ability to observe your own reactions, assumptions, and expectations while remaining open to information that contradicts your projections. Projection recognition involves asking yourself crucial questions during the early stages of attraction. What specific qualities am I seeing in this woman that feels so compelling? Do I have concrete evidence for these qualities, or am I making assumptions based on limited information? Am I seeing her as she presents herself, or am I filling in gaps with my own fantasies about who she might be? The most reliable sign of anima projection is intensity of attraction that seems disproportionate to how well you actually know the person. When you feel strongly drawn to someone based on minimal interaction, you're likely projecting rather than responding to their actual personality and character. Healthy attraction based on genuine compatibility typically grows gradually as you get to know someone better, rather than starting intense and then diminishing. Projection withdrawal means consciously choosing to relate to women as they actually present themselves, rather than as carriers of your projected expectations. This requires developing tolerance for uncertainty and gradual revelation, rather than rushing to complete the picture with your own assumptions. It means asking questions and really listening to the answers, paying attention to inconsistencies or surprises, and remaining curious about who the person actually is, rather than confirming who you want them to be. The second step in Jung's method is anima dialogue and integration, developing a conscious relationship with your own feminine energy through inner work rather than external projection. This involves recognizing that the qualities you've been seeking in women, creativity, intuition, emotional depth, spiritual insight, aesthetic sensitivity, are aspects of your own personality that need to be developed and integrated. Anima integration begins with what Jung called active imagination, consciously engaging with your feminine energy through creative expression, emotional exploration, and spiritual practice. This might involve journaling, artistic activities, meditation, or therapeutic work that helps you connect with the intuitive, feeling, and creative aspects of your personality that you've been projecting onto women. The goal isn't to become feminine, but to become psychologically complete by developing the full range of human capacities rather than splitting them by gender and projecting half of your potential onto others. Integrated men maintain their masculine strength and direction while also having access to emotional intelligence, creative inspiration, and intuitive wisdom that enhances rather than diminishes their masculinity. Jung emphasized that this integration work must be done for its own sake, not as a strategy to improve relationships. The anima integration process requires genuine commitment to psychological development and personal growth, rather than tactical changes aimed at attracting women. Paradoxically, men who do this work for authentic reasons often find that their relationships improve dramatically because they're no longer seeking external completion. The third step involves conscious relationship skills, learning to relate to women based on genuine interest in their actual personalities, experiences, and perspectives, rather than on how well they match your projections. This requires developing what Jung called psychological curiosity, authentic interest in understanding others as they truly are, rather than as you want them to be. Conscious relationship skills include learning to ask open-ended questions and really listen to the answers, paying attention to subtle communication beyond just words, and being willing to be surprised by information that doesn't match your expectations. It means approaching each woman as a unique individual, with her own complex psychology, rather than as a representative of your anima projections. These skills also involve learning to appreciate women's actual qualities rather than the projected qualities you've been seeking. Real women have unique combinations of strengths and limitations, interesting perspectives shaped by their own experiences, and complex personalities that unfold gradually over time. Learning to appreciate this reality often proves far more satisfying than the temporary high of anima projection. The fourth step in Jung's method is relationship differentiation, learning to maintain your own psychological center while remaining genuinely open to connection with others. This means developing what he called psychological boundaries, the ability to be influenced and affected by others without losing your own identity or projecting your psychology onto them. Differentiated relationships involve mutual respect for each other's separate psychology and individual development path. Instead of seeking fusion or completion through the other person, you maintain your own wholeness while appreciating and supporting their wholeness. This creates relationships based on choice rather than neediness, mutual enhancement rather than dependency. Jung observed that men who successfully overcome anima projection often experience a dramatic improvement in all their relationships with women, not just romantic ones. They develop better friendships with women because they can appreciate feminine perspectives without needing to romanticize or sexualize them. They become better fathers to daughters because they can see and support their children's individual development rather than projecting expectations onto them. The transformation also typically improves men's professional relationships with female colleagues because they can collaborate and communicate effectively without the distortion of unconscious projection. They develop greater emotional intelligence and intuitive awareness that enhances their leadership capacity and creative abilities. Perhaps most importantly, men who integrate their anima and overcome projection patterns often find that they attract much higher quality relationships because they're no longer unconsciously seeking women who match their projections. They become attractive to psychologically healthy women who want genuine partnership rather than serving as projection screens for their partner's unconscious contents. The journey from anima projection to conscious relationship represents one of the most challenging but rewarding aspects of masculine psychological development. It requires the courage to face your own psychological immaturity, the discipline to do inner work rather than seeking external solutions, and the patience to develop genuine relationship skills based on reality rather than fantasy. Jung's insights about anima projection offer hope for men who have been trapped in cycles of relationship disappointment and confusion. By understanding this pattern and committing to the psychological work necessary to overcome it, you can develop the capacity for authentic intimacy and genuine love based on seeing and appreciating real women rather than your own projected illusions. Your recognition of these patterns in your own relationship history represents the beginning of potential transformation. Jung's method provides a clear path from projection-based relationships to conscious partnerships that serve the growth and fulfillment of both people involved, creating the foundation for authentic love that deepens rather than diminishes over time.